Welcome to Tech on Deck. Today we're doing a Behind the Wheel podcast. We're joined today by Chris Radar Wetzel. I'm your host, Daniel Kinsman. Dan Shipley's the co-host. So let's dive into it. Chris, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Doing
Doing
well.
good.
Good.
So tell the listening audience a little bit about yourself and how you got into trucking.
My name's Chris Radar Wetzel. They just call me Radar. I got into trucking about 8 years ago, doing dry van. Started in a dry van with Walking Shepherd out of Missoula, Montana. And the only reason I got into that is because I wrecked my motorcycle and couldn't tow anymore. So I got my learner's permit and off we went. Basically, my wife got tired of me being at home because I was all banged up, and went on from there. My wife and I started teaming at Walking Shepherd, and then she saw an oversized load going down the road and said, "Hey, I want to do that." And I told her she was out of her mind. Just swing the doors back up to the dock. We had done, and it's been on and cracking since then. Been open deck and oversized, heavy haul, specialized for the last 3, 4 years now. I don't know, I lose count. And currently working for a company out of Clarksville, Indiana, running an RGN double drop. So getting ready to move out of California, thank God. And we're just taking it one day at a time. Currently sitting up in Virginia, Minnesota, waiting to load on Monday.
How far away are you from the fires?
My house in Cali is the closest fire is just over the mountain range in Castaic and the Pacific Palisades, so that we're about 40 miles any direction, and Pacific Palisades about 40. We're
Are you
probably
worried that
60
it might reach
miles.
your house?
No, not at all, because we're sitting
No.
in the west side of Lancaster, down in the valley, so it's got to go through a whole lot of stuff before it gets to us, and the
Okay.
wind's blowing it the wrong direction. So, but it is definitely devastating, and I feel for all the people that lost their homes out there, and
Yeah, definitely.
it's just a bad situation all the way around.
Yeah, it absolutely is. That whole situation out there is just it's for a lot of people. If you're listening to this later, look up the fires in Southern California. It was devastating.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm. It's still
most
going on.
definitely.
I guess like two more fires popped up. Let me look that up because I think we
Yeah,
got.
they've still got several fires burning out there. They have.
Hmm.
I'm not sure. I think a couple people have been arrested for starting some, and
Yep.
it's wiped out whole cities almost.
Well, I've seen some eyewitness accounts of fires starting out underneath power lines at the base of a tower for power lines up there near Pacific Palisades, but I don't know
So
so far
the
what
Palisades
official.
fire, the Palisades fire located near Los Angeles has burned approximately 23,448 acres and is currently 81% contained. The Eaton
Mm,
fire um, has affected about 14,021 acres and is 95% contained. This is all according to Cal Fire. The huge fire, this is near Castiac,
Castaic,
has
yeah.
burned over Castaic has burned over 10,425 acres and is 87% contained. And Border 2
Hmm.
fire near Chula Vista in San Diego County, the Border 2
San
fire
Diego,
has burned approximately 6,500 acres and is currently 10% contained. So it looks like
yeah.
they're making some really good progress on getting these contained. Unfortunately, a lot of have been lost.
Oh yeah.
The last one you said was only 10% contained at
Yeah.
65,000 acres.
Acres. Yeah, down near Chula Vista, that's San Diego area. It's not good. And the
Yeah.
Hughes fire is the one that's
No.
closest to my house.
Wow.
Wow.
The analysis by firms such as Verisk estimate insured property losses from the Palisades and Eaton fires to be between 28 billion and 35 billion. The total economic impact, when considering uninsured property damage, business interruptions, healthcare costs, and other economic factors, the total economic loss is projected to be between 250 billion and 275 billion, according to
Oh yeah.
AccuWeather.
Doesn't
Wow.
surprise me.
Yeah.
I mean, it wiped out
But,
whole
you know,
neighborhoods.
Yeah.
for us in the trucking industry, that means it's going to be a big call for building supplies going out there
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, with
once they
nothing
get
coming out.
everything contained. Yeah. That's a problem with California is there's so much freight that goes out there, but nothing coming out, especially for flatbed. There's so little on flatbed that'll come out. You got
Yeah.
seasonal loads. For those listening that don't know, a lot of onions are a very popular commodity to put on a flatbed to come out of California, but they're seasonal and
Yep.
they're they're a difficult load to haul and they don't pay very well. So sometimes it's barely even worth putting it on the truck to get out of California.
Speaking of
Right.
pay, Radar, how do you feel about driver pay in the industry right now? How do you think it's going?
Mm, it's not good. It's definitely not good. Uh, right now, pretty much the only guys that are getting paid are company. And the owner operators are struggling. Everybody's struggling. And honestly, I hope that with the new administration coming in, that starts to turn around. But it's not going to be anything that happens quick. Um, my biggest issue is the I can do it cheaper guys, you know. Um, I was at a place up in Pennsylvania picking up, and the the shipping office asked me if I would go over and help the gentleman, but there was a language barrier that I couldn't even talk to him. You know, he had no understanding other than of the English language, and even with the translator, you know, it didn't work. And it wasn't that I wasn't unwilling to help him; it was the fact that he didn't want to listen to the instructions that were given to him by the shipper. It was just real bad. He was trying to load his load like mine, and his was way, way overweight by 20,000 pounds. And it was 11 wide. He was trying to leave without permits or anything. And so it just comes back to the industry of, well, you know, you pay for what you get. You know, good labor isn't
I feel
cheap,
like,
and cheap labor isn't good.
yeah,
So
I
the
feel
pay
like
is not very good.
some of the, yeah, I feel like some of the issues within the industry are bad brokers that will look at a load and say, hey, I feel like even though the customer is paying good money to have the correct equipment sent out, which usually will result in a driver that has more knowledge of what they're doing, they'll say this, I feel like this load can fit on a smaller trailer that will cost less so I can pocket more of the money.
Absolutely. Brokers are another big problem in our industry. The transparency is not there, you know, and brokers are, in my opinion, are killing the trucking industry with their shady tactics. You know, double brokering is a big problem. Theft is a big problem. Um, you know, you get a shady broker that wants you to plan your own tow truck. Like a friend of mine was picking up a load, and the broker wanted him to schedule the tow truck and pay for the tow truck, and absolutely not. And come to find out, his load was double brokered because the original broker found that he had the load and called him, and they refused to do anything. And what it boils down to is the second broker that is trying to get the load moved is not willing to do anything other than pester us and get us to move it for as cheap a rate as possible. And then when it comes down to getting paid, if you were to send that broker the bills, the broker that actually had it is not going to pay out, and the second broker is going to submit your paperwork as the trucking company as the driver, and you're not going to see a dime. So you end up doing the work for free. You know, if it's too good to be true, it usually is.
Yep. I feel like there needs to be a law or registration put in place for brokers where right now they have to have a DOT or an NC number, but that doesn't differentiate brokers from trucking companies.
Right.
And there needs to be a separate law put in place where they have their own registration number so that brokers know that for the honest and good brokers, they know that they're not being taken advantage of by what they think is a trucking company, but is actually just a brokerage firm that's coming in to broker their load a second time or a third time and take the money out of the driver. That way they can ensure that, hey, this is actually a trucking company.
Well, it's all well and good. Laws are all well and good, but if you don't have the agency to police those laws, you know, uh, those laws don't do anybody any good. They're just words on a page in a book that the government says you got to go by this. But if there's nobody to enforce them, then they don't do us any good. I mean, the Trump administration just put a 60-day hold on any new regulations being put on the books. Well, part of that new regulation was the broker transparency, and I mean, you can go over to Mother Trucker, and he's got a video on it. Alex got a really good video about it, and it sounds good, it looks good, but when it comes down to it, the FMCSA is not a governing law enforcement body. It's just a regulatory body. So when you do end up getting double brokered, like my friend was almost taken for, there's nobody to enforce that law, right? It's a governing
Yeah.
body. It's not a law enforcement agency. A law enforcement agency can press charges and go after them. Well, the FMCSA is not that. They turn around and tell you
So,
it's a civil matter and you got to take it to civil court. Well, that doesn't help you because then you spend so much money. You spend double the money to get the money from the crooked broker if you can find them. And what happens? They disappear.
yeah.
They just change their MC number, they change their name, or they put it in their spouse's name or their brother-in-law's name, and they keep on doing business. So laws are all well and good, but if you don't have somebody to enforce them, they're meaningless. Absolutely
So I
meaningless.
would I would feel like uh, if we were going to put this under something that's enforceable, I almost feel like this would be a monetary or a wages crime, which would be not really the DOT, but more of like the SEC, Securities and Exchange,
Yeah,
or something along those lines. Because while this isn't really necessarily a trucking issue, it is, but it's a financial one. It is taking
right,
money and falsely claiming that you are a business that does X when you aren't actually a business that does that. You are just finding businesses that do.
right. Well, you know, all we can do as an industry, and hey, if this video makes it across President Trump's desk for some reason, one way or another, you know, I would ask them, President Trump, I know he's got a lot going on, right? But uh, he's talking about making America better. And, there are some things that I agree with what he's doing. There are some things that I don't agree with. But you know what? I still voted for him and I still back him and I still appreciate what he's doing for us as Americans. And he's trying to bring everything back into American made and American moved, trucked. He's doing the best to make America great again. And if this video comes across his desk, I'd love him. I'd love to see him look at our industry in this particular problem with getting companies and drivers paid what they're worth for what they do. And he can make all the laws he wants, but I would put this to him and challenge him to make it a federal crime to stiff us out here as a company, as a owner operator, as a driver. I If you make it a federal crime, it goes across all 50 states instead of making it a state issue where you have, if this happened in California, you have to go back to California to get anything done through the court system. It's really a lost cause at that point. Make it a federal crime and give the governing body, whether it be the federal government, the FMCSA, give them law enforcement abilities to put press charges on these brokers that are not playing by the rules and are just being shady. Or, um, for instance, just a while back, there was a brokerage company that held freight for ransom. They sent trucks out there, they got it, and then they called either the shipper, the receiver, the company that owned the freight and said, "Hey, you're going to pay us more, or you won't see your freight." And then they just disappeared after they got their money.
Yeah.
Make that a federal crime, not a local or a state crime. Make it a federal crime. Make it so that the federal government can step in and go after these people and press charges. But we all know that the government is not always the best in everything that they put their foot forward on or their hands on. And the government should work for the people and not the people for the government, in my opinion. And you know come out here and spend a month with us. I'll put the
So I
passenger
would
seat back in my truck and say, "Come on, President Trump, come, I'll challenge him to do that. Come out here and spend just 48 hours with me." You
I've
know,
thought for a
on
long time it would be great for the industry to come together, um, from like van companies to flatbed, specialized, even heavy haul. Put an event together where the politicians can come out and actually go and sit in a vehicle, in a semi truck, find out like the difference between when you look in the mirror of a vehicle hauling a van going down the road versus one hauling a 14-foot wide load. You can actually get them in the
oh,
seat, look in the mirror, and be like, this is the difference in skill. We have to go down the road and be able to say, if my hood is at this point in the lane, the load is at these points behind me.
right. But I wouldn't advocate for putting somebody in that seat right there that doesn't have a CDL and hasn't gone through what we've had to go through to get where we are now. I mean, nobody will look at us
Yeah.
unless you have a year OTR. So, you know, that's all well and good. Take them out on a test track, and we can load my truck to 93,000 pounds or 110,000 pounds, and let's see you try and stop it. Give them an eye opening,
Yeah.
just what it is to, you're done by, the end of the day and you can't find parking. That's another major issue in our industry. There's not enough parking out here. Absolutely not. And then on top of it, you've got drivers that are not properly trained. You know, I was trained
Yep.
that the cell phone that we're talking on right now, and that GPS that's up there on the dash, those got thrown in the back, and what I used was my road atlas. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And I had somebody sitting next to me in my seat, in the passenger seat, going down the road, and he didn't have no 6 months or 6 weeks or 3 weeks to be a trainer. No, he had 2 years. So that's another thing that we need to focus on as an industry. We need better training. Um, and even that goes to flatbed safety and securement, where you know we have a Facebook group that is um, making leaps and bounds in helping drivers that are running an open deck that either one have never done it before or have very little experience. We're partnered with a company doing training for learning without scars right now, and that's going to be a massive help to understand that there are certain ways that you have to load and secure equipment, because when it comes down to it, it be when you pull out on the road, or when I pull out on the road, I want to be able to put my family next to my truck and my load, and feel that they're safe. So if I won't do that for my family, I'm not going to put your family in the same spot, and I feel we also need better education for anybody that's driving a car around any one of our
Absolutely.
semi trucks. We should have better education with that. And our flatbed safety and securement group is set up in a way that even if you're not a driver in any way, shape, or form, you could be a broker, you could be a police officer, you could be the secretary at the dentist's office, right? You could be any one of those people and request to end membership to our group, where you could come in and learn about what we do out here as an open deck carrier or driver. Even some of the oversized and heavy haul guys are in this group as well. That we just want to be able to teach without all of the extra harassment, because we don't allow talking down, we don't allow belittling, and it's got to stay on a professional level the entire time. And that's the way we run the group, is at a level that doesn't doesn't allow that kind of attitude or comments and whatnot. So we're really just out here to inform, teach, and make the roads a
It's
bit safer.
it's an environment meant for mentoring, where
Correct.
we're taking people under our wing and saying, hey, this is, you might not have had the training on it. We know how to do this, so we're going to teach you. We're going to make sure that you do this safely. And it's not
Right.
for just the driver. It's not to benefit the company. It's to benefit everybody. It's to make sure that nothing falls off the truck, that people get home safe, the driver, the motoring vehicles around us.
Right.
I used to train drivers at my previous employer. The first thing I'd tell them is, I did the flatbed and load securement training. And the first thing I would tell them the day they got in the truck is, today you're going to have a couple hundred to several thousand people's lives in your hand. You
Mhm.
have to keep that in mind. When you secure the truck, when you secure the load, you release those brakes. Every life that goes past you is relying on, whether they realize it or not, they're relying on you did your job right, and nothing will
Right.
fall off the trailer and kill them.
Well,
Because
and
let's face
well,
it, with what we do, if something falls off the truck, it's going to kill somebody. It's not a
absolutely.
matter of it might. A forty
There
thousand
was
pound coil
a
coming off a truck is going to kill somebody.
Well, there was a load, and it's not just in the semi truck and flatbed size wise. It's also out there with the towing companies. Okay, for instance, uh, a tow operator did not have his L bar fastened properly. The L bar came off his truck and went through the passenger side of a semi truck. So it's not just we're not just trying to teach, big truck safety. We're also trying to teach little cars, four wheelers, tow trucks, hot shots. We're trying to teach all of that as well. And it goes way beyond even load securement, all right? We're also trying to teach personal safety, personal health, and outdoor safety. Whether you're in the heat in Phoenix at 120 on the asphalt, or you're up in the northern side of Minnesota where it is currently negative 10, and the closest facility to go use the restroom is across the street. Even though that's 5 minute walk, you got to be bundled up for that, because if you're not
Yeah.
careful, you can get hypothermia, frostbite, and then on the other side of the country, down in Phoenix, during the summer where it's 120, you still have to limit your time outside. You got to make sure that you're hydrated. You got to make sure that you're still sweating. You have to be able to recognize the health risks that go with it. And then on the other side of that as well, you know, getting out in the cold or out in the heat can have some severe internal issues that cause you to have a heart attack, um, or heart problems. We also want to make sure that not only is our load secured, but we're safe as a driver
Hmm.
and know our limitations when we can drive this thing down the road. And when you say, you know what, guys, I'm done. I'm parking. I can't even get into gear, and I've got an automatic transmission. I can't get it into gear. I can't think that far ahead. And
Yeah.
that's the other reason that this group exists. We also
And
just started up another foundation that's getting off the ground, and when that can be disclosed, we'll put that out there as well. Um, and this is literally when you are out away from your home as an OTR driver, you are on duty, whether your clock says you're on duty or not. You're on duty 24/7 until those brakes get set at home and you shut that engine off and you get out and walk away from the truck. You're still on duty. So you have to work like you're on duty. You have to live like you're on duty. You got to make sure your health is good. You got to make sure your equipment before it hits the road is in 100% tip top condition. It, this is no joke.
and
And if more
I one of the
drivers
things I
thought that way, then we would have less issues out on the road, and unfortunately, the stance of today's society and trucking is I got to beat that clock. This load is
yeah,
hot. I got to get it there. You know what? Ain't no load going to get there if the driver can't get it there. So my advice to the entire industry, no matter what you're doing, slow down, take your time, be responsible, and just relax. The load will still get there. No matter
I've
if it, I'd rather have, if I was a customer, I'd rather have a late load than no load at all.
I've
It's that
told one
simple.
of the things I used to tell a couple of my students when they went over the road. They called me because I'm not a trainer. I'm also a mentor. My
Same here.
prior students that I've had, they still call, they still talk with me on occasion. They've called to ask me, hey, do you've been around the industry for a while. You know about this company, about that company.
Hmm.
Um, One of the things I told them, when you go over the road, even when you're sleeping in the bunk, if somebody hits you, you're now on duty. Your
Yeah.
sleep time has ended. You're now on duty. You have to go on duty. You have to deal with filing the report, making the paperwork, filling the paperwork out, and then that completely screws up your 10-hour clock.
Right.
And you have to just it's not. And for dispatchers and company owners out there, understand. it's not a criticism. It's something that is overlooked, that in this industry, truck drivers don't get good sleep because if you're a good driver, when you feel your truck bump in the night,
Mm-hmm.
it's abnormal. You're going to wake up. You're going to just look out, crack the
And
curtains,
you're,
look in your mirror. Hey, did somebody hit the load? Did somebody, what's going on? That bump wasn't
yeah,
normal. We have
right.
to check that. It is a part of our job to make sure the truck is safe. And that is part
24
of it, is
hours a
that
day.
somebody hit me.
Mm-hmm.
Until
24 hours
until
a
we
day.
set the brakes at the terminal or we're at the house, we're even when
Absolutely.
we're sleeping, we're still maintaining that.
Right.
Now, one of the things I'm advocating for is in the industry to bring pay up and to bring experience up is going to a licensing system. Not to say I want more government involvement, but intelligent government involvement is a better way forward. And it's going to a licensing system similar to what they do with pilots. Pilots don't start out being able to fly the biggest airplanes, the biggest things in the skies.
Right.
They start out, they have to earn their time on the small stuff and work their way up. I know it'd be a huge upheaval in the industry, but having a licensing system where drivers, as they gain skills, as they gain that experience, move their license up, it would create a career path for a new driver to be able to say, hey, one day I want to get to doing this kind of work. Well, this is the career path. This is how you do that. You
Right.
have to go through these steps to become eligible to move into that.
I'd
Um,
like to see a
so that
endorsement for out of all the states. I'd like to see an endorsement come along for open deck, and that's broad, right?
yeah,
That's not just a 53-foot flatbed, a 48 flatbed. That is also on a uh, RGN. Anything that's open where the load is open outside, sitting, you know, where you can see it, whether it's tarped or not. I'd like to see some sort of training endorsement coming from the every state out there, and you know, as well as I do that. The California is going to take that one step further and make it the hardest to get, but also at the same
yep.
time, when you leave California with California driver's license and you switch your license because you moved to another state, you, 9 times out of 10 when you walk in and they say, well, where are you licensed out of, and you say California, they go, okay, come on in, take these tests. And usually the tests are a little bit more lenient than California's because let's face it, they set the standard on the amount of BS that we have to go through to get a commercial driver's license. And it is a phenomenal act to just be able to drive this thing down the road. It's not easy. You know, it
Well,
I
the
would
old
really like to see a
Alabama used
lot
to
of
have
things
the
come up.
coil card.
Right, right. Well, they did away with that. As far as I
Yeah,
know.
and that was stupid that they did. I believe
Yeah,
it. I believe they did do away with it. That's stupid that they
coils
did
scare
because
me.
that was a specific. Yeah, coils are the most dangerous load to haul for the driver and the public
Yeah,
for
I
a
I
variety of reasons.
absolutely will not haul them. If I can get out of hauling a coil, I will. And a lot of people will say, "Oh yeah, you know, stop being a girl," or stop being a P. It, you know what I'm saying? And no, them things scare the hell out of me. It doesn't take much for a coil to break loose and roll. So that kind of that licensing or that endorsement I was talking about would encompass coils as well. Open deck.
I I would I would ideally I would like to see it be an endorsement for flatbed, and then you'd have to have a separate endorsement for oversize. That way, guys don't come in, get an endorsement for flatbed, and then immediately companies like, well, now we can just have him do a 12-foot wide load when
Yeah.
he doesn't have the skill yet with a regular truck to do that.
Yeah, and everybody makes mistakes. I'll tell you, I made a mistake uh,
Yeah,
6 months ago. I didn't clear my offset on a 120-foot long load, and I rubbed a mirror with my strap on another truck. You know that
Yep.
that's the other thing. In that situation, when I rubbed that strap, the driver of that truck, obviously he's going to be mad because I just hit his vehicle, right? Well, this brings me to the next point. He got out of his truck, was screaming at me, and when I told him that I'd already called law enforcement, they were on their way. That driver ran back to his truck, and he couldn't grab enough gears getting out of the truck stop before the police showed up. Well, that goes to licensing. We need to have a
Yeah.
better uh, we need to have a better system in place to make sure that we keep the drivers that are not qualified to be out here off the road. And the clearinghouse is doing that, but the clearinghouse is for you know drugs and whatnot, right? So it's not just drugs that are a problem. It's the either unlicensed or not qualified enough to be out here. So that there's a lot of things we could sit here all day and talk about things that need to change. The fact is, you brought up as an industry, we need to unify, right? All the drivers need to come together. Let me bring up this point. Do you remember when the ELD mandate came into effect? Do y'all remember
Yeah.
that?
The
Okay.
drivers were so mad about it. I've actually been
Yeah,
at three
yeah,
different
they were
companies
mad.
as we transitioned from paper log to ELD.
They were all mad. But what happened? They all went and they took their trucks bobtail to Washington and staged a protest, or they staged a protest on the freeway where they shut the freeway down in major cities across the US, right? They so they were mad about it, but the one thing that needed to happen didn't. Drivers did not come together as a trucking industry and turn the keys off. If you turn the keys off, the United States of America in 3 days is going to have all of their reserves in the warehouses empty. The grocery stores will be empty by day 3. You saw the when COVID hit with the um, toilet paper. Remember that? You know, everybody made a mad dash
Yeah.
on toilet paper and water, bottled water. It,
Yep.
the problem is this industry's not going to unite in any way, shape, or form. You'll get one part of it to unite, and then the other part says, you know what? If I stop my truck, I'm going to lose my job because I work for a mega carrier. Mega carriers have investors that they have to answer to, i.e., Schneider. If you stop your truck with Schneider because, oh, I'm going to participate in, voicing my uh, constitutional rights, you're an at will employer. Guess what? Clean your stuff out of the truck, park it, you're fired. So, as an industry, you'll get one side of it to unify, the other side is never going to do it. So, you're never going to get the entire industry as drivers to come together and say, this is enough. We're done.
So you're
I mean, look at
suggesting a
Canada.
strike.
Even a strike is not going to work. You'll have to get everybody together to do it. You know the
That's what I'm
What
saying.
the
What you're
had
suggesting is a strike. Everybody get together and for the same cause, and stop moving the trucks. That's what you're suggesting, right?
so
Yeah,
and
what I'm
part
saying
of it
is
I
that's
think is
never
getting
going
the
to
mega
happen.
carriers. It's never going to happen because the mega carriers keep going, and part of it is getting
Right.
mega carriers to understand how it will benefit them to assist or support this. I mean, case in point, okay, you
Bottom
have a
line,
bunch of
money.
drivers complaining about the EL. Yeah, you have a bunch of drivers complaining about the ELD, but it wasn't
Hmm.
the ELD they were mad at. They were mad at the hours of service. They just blamed it on the ELD because now they couldn't create their own
Right.
logbooks. But
But
the ELD
since
is just enforcing the law. Whatever you can do legally on logbook, on a
you
paper
could do
log,
it
on
on
a
paper.
we used to call them loose leaf.
Yep.
You can do it on e logs, but they don't
So
they don't want that oversight, and then that makes them look bad. But at the same time, what if the what if the mega fleets would actually take a proactive approach and say, hey, instead of the government coming up with whatever they feel like is going to work,
Mm-hmm.
how about we get together? We actually deal with, we have everybody makes fun of Swift. Swift has the worst drivers, but it's also overlooked that they have several drivers that have won the skills competitions for driving truck.
Right.
So they have some extremely high skill drivers. Pull those drivers in and
Absolutely.
be like, hey, you've got experience. You've got what would make your job better. Let's get together as an industry and say, hey, instead of the government telling us what to do, we're going to take this to the government and say, this is what we would like to see changed because this will actually
Or,
benefit the industry.
yeah, or not what we want to see changed. Hey, this is what you're going to change, or we as an industry, we're going to stop delivering your goods. A lot of people misinterpret or they miss this next statement. If you got it on, or if you're drinking it, or if you live in it, or if you drive it, or you eat it, a truck brought that. If you don't like this stuff and you want to go back to the dark ages, well, trucks can just stop. You know, that a truck brought it. If you got it, a truck brought it. And that goes for everything. Everything. It is
We
understandable that us as an industry is never going to see eye to eye on everything. But if we want to make more money, we talked about driver's pay a little bit. Well, then we need to definitely unify as an industry and say, look, this is not okay. You know, the the prevailing wage for truck drivers has gone down since I started. They're calling 38 cents, 42 cents a mile great right now. Or, moving a load down the road at $1.10 a mile is great. No, no, it's not. Our trucks used to make five and above. In the oversized and heavy haul division, we'd look at you and not even start our trucks for less than 10. So this unifying, yeah, I don't see it happening at all. I do I wish it would happen? Absolutely. But there are so many things with the deregulation of trucking, and I believe President Carter did that. So don't quote me on it, but I believe Carter did that. And since then, with the deregulation of trucking, it has steadily gone down the tubes and is not looked upon as a professional job anymore. And we're getting more and more of the bad rep with what the general public is seeing out on the roads. Um, Speed differential in California. Cars can do 70, 65. Trucks and trailers, even the little cars, are limited to 55. When you get out of California, it's 70 or 80, depending on where you're at. And that's another safety concern. They talked about the speed limiters. I know that's been a hot topic for quite a while. Well, guess what? Those speed limiters are not coming in at least for the next 60 days due to President Trump's executive order that no more regulations. Not till we get a chance to take a look at all this, because you guys are just throwing stuff at the American public and the American people, and we're getting tired of it. That's where it's at. So as a whole, man, there's so much to fix and so much to change, but it's gonna stay broken because the driver that moves the truck down the road can't afford to lose his job right now. I mean, we have families out there that are literally living paycheck to paycheck. And even worse,
and they're
some are
working
living
70 hours a week.
or more. I mean, or it takes three incomes to keep the house afloat. Whereas, last year it took, you know, 5,000 to run a house. This year or the year before, since COVID started, it took $5,000 to run my house with my farm for my wife and two kids in it, right? Well, since COVID has started, now it's 7,000 a month, and that's in California, and that's with us uh, raising our own meat in the backyard. And that's, we have our own cow, or we had at one point, we had our own cow. So we had our own fresh milk and chickens and eggs and whatnot. So we really had to learn to cut back like everybody else is cutting back. And, fast food's now a luxury. I read that
Yeah.
yesterday that fast food's a luxury. Well, that's another problem for us as truck drivers. When you go out and you run down the road, you stop at a truck stop. What do they have now? It's fast food. You're going to spend $40, right? Minimum for
Yep.
one meal. One meal. And so most of the drivers out there, including the new ones, get to the point where they just eat off the points they generate from wherever they're fueling. And that food is not good for us. So it comes again full circle. We're talking about health and safety. We are
I think
literally
part,
running ourselves into the ground for what? I don't want to die in this truck.
yeah,
I
and
don't
that's
want to be
becoming
OTR
increasingly
anymore.
prevalent in the industry.
Yeah, and it
More and more
also
people, more and more
obesity.
drivers are being found. Yeah,
Yeah. I read this
I
morning,
I think a big
the driver was found deceased in his truck. The truck stop noticed that the truck had not moved in several days. Do you know, I'm sitting in Virginia with Minnesota right now. I have been here since Thursday. I load on Monday with an oversized going out to Detroit. And let me tell you, I have had 11 cops or sheriff, highway patrol, law enforcement individuals come and bang on my door. Okay? They see me sitting here and they don't see the truck move. They're actually coming out up here and they're saying, "Hey, you all right? You got enough food? Are you warm? Your truck having problems?" You know, we as an industry, that comes back to health. I don't want to die in this truck. None of us do.
yeah.
None of us want to die in it driving down the road. When they say the roads are too slick, look, you go down to, you got New Orleans, you got Florida, Alabama, Texas. We've had a one hell of a storm down there that is unprecedented for what, the last 100 years. And they say the roads are not safe to drive on. Stay parked. What happens? What happens? The dispatcher on the other end of that line tells the driver that load must get there no matter what. So if you don't drive, you're fired. They may not say it in that one respect, but you know what? That's inferring it, and they do infer it, and that's what they mean. You're going to drive whether you like it or not. We don't care if the roads are
Yeah.
messed up and dangerous, but we as drivers have to sit back and go, you know what? I'm the captain of the ship, not you. If you want this load there, by all means, come out here and get the truck. I'll clean my stuff out of it, and you could drive it out there, and let's see how that works for you. So we're back to health, safety, flatbed safety and securement, driver safety.
And
This so
as
much to change.
there's so many areas. I think a big area we can start on is our licensing. Our
Absolutely,
licensing was our licensing was adequate for the time frame in which it was written, but we've
it's outdated
now
now.
the world has changed. It's outdated.
Yeah.
Going to a system where you come into the industry, you get your learner's permit, then you get a CDL, but you still are recognized as you're still new to the industry. So you've got restrictions yourself.
Hmm.
And then this creates a career path advancement where if you want to move up in it, you can move up in it and you get different licenses that recognize your safety, your merit, but then those companies also understand, hey, we're now competing.
Right.
If we want a driver with 5 years safe driving that has every endorsement, well, that's a small field. So now
Right.
we're competing for that driver. Well, then that tells the new guy, hey, don't don't risk your record. Don't risk your license to push for this one load to get it there when they want you to get it there.
Right.
Because if you do, that's going to screw all that up.
And we all started somewhere. So my advice to
Yeah.
anybody that wants to become a truck driver or wants to better themselves, keep believing, keep taking the next step, keep going, keep learning. Because I'll tell you right now, I learn something new every day. And I challenge myself to learn something new every day because the one day that I think I know it all is when it's a wrap and I'm going to kill somebody or I'm going to kill myself in something because I knew it all. You know, sit back, relax, and don't be afraid to ask for help, and don't be afraid to ask questions. You know, it doesn't take much because the answer is still no unless you ask. You know,
I I do
I
the
have my
For
doubles, I
those
have
of you
my
that don't
triples,
know that are
I
yeah,
have all
for
that.
those of you that don't
You
know
know,
that are listening, I do the super loads, the huge stuff that you see with police escorts and a
I'm
bunch of
not
civilian
qualified for
escorts.
that yet.
And I well, the thing is I still have loads where I call the guys that are above me, the guys that have been doing it longer than me, and I'll
Hmm.
bug them. I might call them 4 or 5 times. I'm getting ready to go out. I might have used the particular trailer 3 or 4 times. I know how to use
Right.
it. I've been trained on it,
Hmm.
but it's something I'm not used to loading. It's a load that is completely different from the norm. Or we're using the trailer
Right.
configuration in a way I have never used it, but I know they have. So
Right.
take that time, make
Right.
that call. They give me all kinds of pointers, all kinds of tips. I could give a shout out to Charles and Jeremy. I bug the heck out of them. I call them, I ask them questions. I'll call them again to make sure I got it right when I took the notes on the answer.
Hmm.
I, it's a part of the job. And if you're coming into this line of work and you aren't comfortable doing that, become comfortable doing that. Find a
Absolutely.
good driver that is a good mentor and make sure that when you have a question, call them.
Ask.
Do it safe.
Ask.
Do the job safely. Just ask.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
And
Just ask.
I believe
It's not
with
that
that
hard.
we're about ready to wrap it up. Are we not, Mr. Shipley?
Yep, we got it. We're gonna wrap this one up. We get on to the next podcast. Radar, it was a pleasure having you on.
Thank you for
If you
having
want to
me.
come back on in the future, yeah, absolutely. If you want to come on in the future, just let us know.
Okay.
We can talk about anything you got going on. That's what the Behind the Wheel series is about. Anybody listening who's a truck driver who wants to be a guest on the Behind the Wheel series, you can email us at guest@techondeckpodcast.com. That is guest@techondeckpodcast.com. And then we can get you scheduled in and put you in a Behind the Wheel series.
Absolutely.
So you
I
go ahead and
got one more thing
go ahead.
to anybody that's watching this, and you're on Facebook. You know, I'd like you to reach out to Flatbed Safety and Securement Group if you're interested in becoming a flatbedder, if you're interested in anything open deck, or if you just want to learn. You know, you're not a truck driver. That's okay. Uh, Reach out, check us out, Flatbed Safety and Securement Group on Facebook, and submit the request to become a member. Please read the membership questions and answer them accordingly, and uh, come come check it out. Come learn something new, and just say, hey, hey, I'm here to check it out and I want to learn something. Check us out. Flatbed
We also
Safety and
have a
Securement Group.
website.
We
We
do?
also have a website
Go
as
ahead.
well. Yeah, if the audience is having difficulty finding the Facebook group or whatever the case might be, they can go to flatbed-safety.com. Scroll to the bottom of the page. You can find our socials. Just click on what you want to go to, and it'll take
Absolutely.
you to it. You got the Facebook link, TikTok link, and much more.
And drivers, keep the shiny side up and that
Side.
dirty side down. We'll
That's
see you
right.
next time.